Hello, my name is Bronwyn Reddan and I'm a research fellow at Deakin University. My topic is how to get more teens reading for pleasure more often. This comes from a research project funded by the Australian Research Council and the Copyright Agency Cultural Fund. It's called Discovering a Good Read, Cultural Pathways to Reading for Australian Teens in a Digital Age. We started mapping the ecology of teen reading in Australia in 2020 alongside our industry partners, whose logos you can see in my background. You can find out more about the project at teenreading.net. Today, I'm talking about strategies that support teens reading for pleasure. And I have 3 questions to guide this discussion. 1. How often do Australian teens read for pleasure? 2. What stops teens reading? 3. What keeps teens reading? 1. How often do Australian teens read for pleasure? In 2022 and 2023, we surveyed 13,000 Australian secondary school students aged 11 to 18 about their reading habits and preferences. Consistent with previous research, we've identified 3 groups of readers. 1. Avid readers. 2. Occasional or light readers. 3. Reluctant or non-readers. Most teens fall into the second category. 55% of teens told us they spend some or a small amount of time reading. 25% said they don't spend any time reading. 17% spend a lot or as much time as they can reading. We're talking about reading for pleasure here, not reading for school. If we look more closely at teens who identify as readers, 45% of this group say they read more often during the school holidays than during the school term. And 44% say they read less now than they did in their final year of primary school, grade 6. This brings me to question number 2. What stops teens reading for pleasure? There is a lot of research about why reading declines during adolescence, but much of this work is created by adults about teens. We asked teens to tell us about their reading, including what stops them from reading. We've identified 5 structural barriers that limit how much teens read: time, identity, attention, motivation, and supply. Of these 5 barriers, time, and that perceived lack of time, that's the one that keeps coming up the most. We were told repeatedly how busy teens are, how crowded the curriculum is, and how many other activities get in the way of teens reading. Homework, part-time jobs, sport, social media, friends, the list goes on. We heard this from teens who answered our survey and attended our focus groups, and from the adults who work really hard to get teens reading: teacher and school librarians and English and literacy teachers. Well, when you put all of this evidence together, the real issue is not time. It's about whether reading is valued as an activity worth making time for. For far too many Australian teens, reading is not something they make much time for. So what can we do about this? Unfortunately, I don't have a silver bullet that will transform reluctant or occasional readers into book lovers. But there are things we can do to make space for reading in the lives of teens. Which brings me to my final question. What keeps teens reading? Schools with a strong reading culture use strategies to help their students keep reading. I'm going to speak about 3 that have relevance beyond the school context: mindset, leadership, and collaboration. And I want to acknowledge here that teacher librarians and school library staff do a phenomenal job of encouraging reading amongst young people, but it is not just their responsibility. Schools who do a good job keeping teens reading involve the whole school community: teachers, parents, school leaders, students, in addition to having a well-resourced school library. It's this type of collaboration that is successful in creating a mindset that encourages reading. When we talk about mindset, we're talking about attitudes towards reading. Or as one of the librarians we spoke to said, if it's not valued and you don't see people reading, you don't make time for it. So, if we want more teens to read for pleasure, they need to see reading as an important and valuable activity. How do we do this? That's where leadership and collaboration come in. Schools who value reading for pleasure have adults in leadership positions, especially teachers and principals, who model reading and talk about books with students. Parents are also important reading role models for teens. But individual reading champions are not enough. The most successful reading cultures are ones where principals, teachers, and librarians collaborate to create a whole of school culture that values reading. It also really helps to find ways to make reading social for teens. Is this achievable? Well, it does require consistent, sustained effort from a range of stakeholders. But yes, I believe it is achievable. Why? The last question in our survey asked teens to tell us how much they think they'll be reading in 10 years' time. More, less, or about the same as they do now. 47% say they think they'll be reading more in 10 years' time. This tells us that teens are still engaged with reading for pleasure, despite the things getting in their way. And teens who have a parent who reads regularly, particularly if that parent is their father, are more likely to say they see themselves reading more in 10 years' time. And this gives me hope that we can help teens read more and tells us that we need to work together with the adults in their lives to do so. Thank you.